Go Catch a Goose, Chapter 4. Deku's home office was technically smaller than his old UA dorm room, but with floor-to-ceiling windows, it felt huge. During the day, he could peer down 20 floors to the gardens where residents walk their dogs, and at night, he had a view of Tokyo Tower lit up cold in the skyline. He had decorated this space himself. An out-of-print All Might poster was the first thing up on the wall. It had been awesome when he taped it over his bed in 5th grade, and now a sharp black frame magnified its flare. Display shelves followed, then his trinkets and figurines, a desktop computer, 3 HD monitors, and as an afterthought, furniture. Hero work didn't allow Deku too much time at home, but when he was, he'd be in front of the computer, researching, reading forums, and taking notes. He'd saved lives by meeting villains prepared. So, when Uradaka cut off their call, insisting that he did not visit her tonight, he retreated to this room. Here, surrounded by All Might's incarnations of paper and plastic, Deku's web windows and browser tabs multiplied like bunnies in paradise. A scientific illustration of a human embryo appeared on the leftmost screen. At 7 weeks, it was an alien creature. Nubs for limbs, dark spots for eyes, a tail, and hardly any neck. Its brand new heart raced, twice as fast as an adult. The mother would experience symptoms such as a missed period, nausea, and exhaustion. Deku wanted to kick himself, it made so much sense. For weeks, Uradaka had been going to bed early and saying she was tired. Not once did he think it was a pregnancy symptom. Deku was quickly realizing how little he knew. UA's biology class had covered sperm, egg, bake for 9 months. No mentions of the functions of the placenta, much less the risk of pregnancy-induced high blood pressure escalating into seizures. Wasn't this more important than photosynthesis? Even the basic stages of development. 2 hours ago, Deku had no idea pregnancy was counted by weeks. 40 weeks was the average gestation, starting from the mother's last period. At conception, Uradaka would technically be 2 weeks pregnant. At 4 weeks, she would miss a period and possibly experience other symptoms, and the pregnancy could be detected with most home tests. So, that meant if Uradaka knew she was pregnant, she had to be at least 4 weeks along. It would be longer. She'd been complaining of exhaustion shortly after they last met up. Deku had a record on his phone. Today was Monday, June 6th. Scrolling through their messages, Deku noted that he met her on Wednesday, May 18th, after which she texted him less and did not take his calls. Assuming the behavioral change was directly related to Uradaka's condition, either her being physically sick, upset after discovering the pregnancy, or the combination, he concluded that as of May 18th, she was at least 4 weeks pregnant. With this information, Uradaka was currently 7, possibly 8 weeks along. Deku pulled up a calendar on the computer. It didn't take a genius to count 40 weeks, and he did it twice. January 18th, he read out loud. A gross estimate, but good enough for now. The baby would be born on or around January 18th next year. He couldn't help but picture Uradaka at the sushi restaurant with an empty beer mug. Deku already knew alcohol caused birth defects, but he just read about maternity diet restrictions, and sushi was equally forbidden. Raw foods potentially carried bacteria that could cause miscarriage. She'd been sitting in front of him, poisoning her child in more ways than one, and neither of them knew. He had to be past the risk of food poisoning, but the lasting effects of alcohol. He pushed down the thought. It was fine. Even if it wasn't fine, there was nothing to do about what she ate or drank weeks ago. Deku's phone buzzed, and immediately he grabbed it off the desk. Despite the situation, something good had happened. Uradaka was talking to him again. She was in a good mood, too, deciding to walk to the grocery store and text him along the way. Right now, this was more important than anything. From Uradaka. Just in time! Bentos are on sale! Gyudon for 50% off. What do you think? Or should I get something healthier? An image loaded, the supermarket selection of pre-packaged meals. A close-up of shredded beef and onion followed, topped with a pinch of ginger, a soft-boiled egg, and a discount sticker on the lid. Deku wanted to hug her. He hadn't gotten a picture of her food in weeks. Deku, the gyudon looks really good. Will the egg be okay? It doesn't look fully cooked. Uraraka. Ah, you're right. It won't taste as good if I put it in the microwave, and I don't want to eat it cold. Deku. It should be okay if you microwave it. Get it if you want to eat it. I'm glad you have an appetite. Uraraka. How sure are you about microwaving eggs? Actually, I think it might blow. Deku. Is the whole container microwavable? If you leave the lid on, it shouldn't make a mess. Uraraka. Yes, but I don't want a blown-up egg. Deku. What if you take the egg off and don't eat it? Uraraka. No way! Who eats gyudon without an egg? It's the best part. Deku. How about you take the egg off and put it in a bowl? Cover it with water and stick it in for a minute. They'll boil the egg and it won't explode. Uraraka. Really? I've never heard that before. Their conversation continued like such. Messages exchanged every few minutes as Uraraka picked out her groceries. He could talk about eggs and microwaves all day. She was talking to him again. They hadn't talked much on the phone. 8 minutes and 11 seconds, mostly of him blabbering whatever came out of his mouth, and seeing her in person seemed to be asking too much. At this moment, simply getting her text messages was close to perfect. Uraraka hadn't brought up the baby yet, so he hadn't either. She had gone quiet for weeks and sent a text saying she'd never see him again. The last thing Deku wanted to do was push her in a corner when she'd barely started talking. Even dealing with villains on a semi-regular basis, it had been a while since something had snatched up Deku's breath like the prospect of Uraraka dropping out of his life. He'd walked home with him their first day at UA, and had faith in him before practically anyone else. He'd called her a lot too. Deku knew he shouldn't unload on her, but she listened and didn't say, "Wow, Deku, I wish I had all of your problems," which would have reminded him to shut up. Somehow, he'd gotten the idea that she'd always be around. And now, she faced an influx of expenses and zero income. Socially, she could expect every bit of senseless criticism thrown at hero mothers on top of being single. Spend 5 minutes on the internet and you knew how self-righteous people could be. And her kid. Deku knew what it was like to grow up without a dad. She might not want to marry him. Being good friends didn't mean that Uraraka would accept that sort of relationship with him. Marriage was more than an offer to help with a baby. He was still glad he said it. They'd missed the typical start, but he'd do whatever he could to make it work. It was a very good option. If not, maybe she'd move into his second bedroom and let him take care of her and the baby until she got back on her feet. Or she'd let him pay her bills. He had more money than he was comfortable mentioning. Or there was also the unfortunate possibility that Uraraka did not want help. If Deku were in a similar situation, he'd be too ashamed to ask. He'd hate himself for being a burden. He wanted to be the person who lifted others up, not someone who had to be picked up out of the dirt. And yet, exactly as Tsuyu predicted, Uraraka had agreed to dating. Deku had a foot in the door. To that end, he huddled with his phone near his nose, thumbs hovering over the keyboard as he decided what to say next. "When can..." he typed out, and almost as quickly deleted. When wasn't right. Too forward, too much pressure. Deku had to ask, but he would think carefully. She'd bought herself the gyudon bento and was headed home from the store now. It was already late for her, and with the pregnancy fatigue, she would probably go to bed soon after she got home. So Deku needed to hurry up. He reworded the question, paused to read it over again. Yes, he could say that much, and sent. She'd bought herself the gyudon bento and was headed home from the store now. It was already late for her, and with the pregnancy fatigue, she would probably go to bed soon after she got home. So, Deku needed to hurry up. He reworded the question, paused to read it over again. Yes, he could say that much, and sent. Deku. Uraraka, would it still be okay if I came to see you tomorrow? Uraraka. Of course! I want to see you too. What time? I should be free after 5 if nothing exciting happens. Deku. What about in the morning? Uraraka. A line of laughing emojis. I don't think so. I have to get to work before 6. Unless you really want to come by here for like not even 10 minutes, I take a break at 9:30. Deku. 9:30 then, I'll be there. Uraraka. LOL, what? Deku, are you serious? I was kidding. 10 minutes, really? Momentarily, Deku closed his eyes. He'd completely missed the joke. He really did need to see her. It had to be in person, and the sooner the better. Text messages were nice, but he couldn't read her reactions through a screen. He didn't know what she was thinking or feeling. Was she really okay? Or rather, given her situation, he knew she was not okay. But was she okay enough, or an inch away from doing something crazy? Still. Deku, if you don't mind, I think it'd be really nice to see you in the morning, even for 10 minutes. Uraraka, you want to come all the way from Tokyo for just 10 minutes? Is this really the same Deku I know? Deku, I'm sorry, it's not a good time for you. We can meet in the afternoon. Uraraka, no, it's not like that. With 4 exclamation points. More like, I know you asked me out, but it hasn't sunk in yet, and now you're saying cute boyfriend things. You really want to? Deku blinked, rereading the messages. A tinge of heat crept up his neck. It did sound cheesy. Deku, yes, if that's okay with you. Uraraka, all right then, I'm excited. Emphasized with a pink heart. Send me a text and I'll come outside. Deku, I will. Uraraka, I'm serious though, I don't have much time. Deku, are you sure you have to go to work tomorrow? You could call in sick. I know you've been tired lately. You don't have to go into detail. Uraraka, yes, I have to go to work. The laughing emoji again. But I'd be happy to see you for 10 minutes. Deku stared at her last message for a minute. This was okay. He'd come off cheesier than intended, but now had plans to meet Uraraka tomorrow. She was talking to him again. And she was going to work tomorrow. Active duty hero work. Pregnant. Like she had today, yesterday, and the weeks before. He put his phone face down on the desk. Uraraka had worked as hard as anyone else at UA to get to where she was, and whatever plans she made for the future, she'd have to step aside for now. Deku didn't think this was a conversation for text messages, or over the phone, for tonight. Instead, he pulled up the police records for the neighborhood where she worked, and then the surrounding areas where she might be called upon as backup. What mischief and trouble went on during a day shift? What villains had been seen in the area, and when? She had Wednesday and Thursday off, more than enough time for Deku to talk to her. But was the chance that tomorrow specifically, she took a nasty punch to the gut?